They opened the prison gates on November 9, 2025, and Harlem's Silver Surfer walked out into a world that had been chanting "Free Max B" for 16 straight years. Cameras were already rolling. French Montana was waiting with open arms, posting the hug online with a caption that felt like a prophecy finally fulfilled. "My brother really came home on my B-day. No more free you." To the blogs and headlines, it was a feel-good moment. The wavy cult hero finally beating a 75-year sentence that had once looked like a death certificate. But on the streets and inside live streams like MRETV, the tone was different. You could hear it in the voices of ex-felons calling in, men who'd done a dozen years and knew exactly what it means when somebody that famous, that polarizing, and that valuable touches concrete again. "Stay away from the dragon and the demons," one caller said, almost like a warning sermon. They weren't talking about fantasy monsters. They were talking about everything that waits for someone like Max B, the moment he becomes a free man again. Police, predators, leeches, old beefs, jealous industry figures, and the kind of friends who only show up when there's a bag to eat off. To understand why people keep saying Max is being targeted, you have to rewind the story. Born Charlie Wingate in Harlem, he lived every classic New York rap chapter at double speed. Mixtape legend, wavy slang architect, Jim Jones affiliate turned enemy, cult favorite whose hooks seeped into the city's DNA. Then, in 2009, it all blew up. He was convicted over a botched 2007 hotel robbery in Fort Lee, New Jersey, a setup gone wrong that left one man dead. Max wasn't even at the scene, but prosecutors tied him to the plot, and the judge dropped a 75-year sentence on him like a final verdict on a Harlem fairy tale. Years later, his legal team clawed that number down. The convictions were partly vacated, he took a plea to aggravated manslaughter, and his time was cut to 20 years. After serving 16, he finally walked out. Technically free, but still on parole and under a microscope. The system already had him in its sights once. It's naive to think they've completely stopped watching now. But the target conversation isn't just about the state. On MRE's Live, callers kept circling around the same point. Coming home in 2025 as Max B doesn't just make you a symbol, it makes you a walking lottery ticket. One ex-felon broke it down clean. When someone like Max comes home, everybody's looking at him like the bag. The industry wants a piece of the comeback narrative. Labels, media platforms, and streaming services see headlines, documentaries, content. Old acquaintances suddenly remember him. Street dudes who never did the time start orbiting for clout. And behind all that, there's the quiet reality that someone died in that original case. One caller on the show even made a point to shout out the victim's family, reminding everyone that while fans are celebrating, there are people who will never see their loved one walk through a door again. That's another version of being targeted, becoming the lightning rod for a bigger moral argument about who gets celebrated when they come home and who stays buried in the footnotes. Then there's the spiritual side that the streets take very literally, the demons waiting to get him fresh out. On that same live, a caller who'd done 12 years himself said plainly that Max has to move like the world is booby-trapped. Don't get too comfortable in clubs. Don't let friends of friends steer you into shady backrooms. Don't let the internet egg you into petty beefs that can turn into federal cases. Another caller expanded it past the street talk and into culture itself. This isn't the era where you can be wild in public and expect no consequences. Words are recorded forever. Every gesture is clipped, remixed, and thrown back in your face. Even something as small as Max's old awe ad-lib became a full segment on MRETV, with callers debating whether grown men yelling it in 2025 looks suspect if only women should say it, and what that says about how hyper-policed masculinity and language are now. That might sound funny, but it's part of the same picture. One slip, one soundbite, one clip in the wrong context, and suddenly the blogs, think pieces, and moral critics are all aiming at him too. Meanwhile, the mainstream media has already started building its own version of the Max B comeback movie. Outlets like Pitchfork, BET, Hot 97, Revolt, and others are framing his release as both a triumph and a test. The wavy architect finally stepping back into a rap game he helped shape, but that moved on without him. They highlight the welcome home party in Midtown, the studio session with French, the jewelry store stop, the Jets game appearance, the 7-date club tour lining up behind the scenes. At the same time, deeper profiles zoom out and make him the face of something larger, a symbol of resilience against bad contracts, harsh sentencing, and an industry that happily profits off pain. That kind of myth-building can be a blessing and a curse. It keeps your name hot, but it also means every move you make becomes a referendum on prison reform, on street ethics, on how hip-hop treats its fallen heroes. When people say he's being targeted, it's not always about bullets. Sometimes it's about expectations so heavy they can crush a man before the first album drops. And yet, in the middle of all that pressure, Max is quietly building a different life. One day after finishing his sentence, he gave his wife, the woman who had written him in prison, stood by him, and married him earlier this year. A new ring, a 3.5-carat statement that his first major investment out of prison wasn't a chain, but a commitment.
Got the ring, folks. Look at that. Oh, man. Say I do.
He's talking about getting back in the booth, not chasing viral drama. He's already dropped projects from Behind the Wall, from Vigilante Season to Negro Spirituals, and his voice is still there, buttery and melodic, waiting for a new era of production. What this really means is that the next chapter of Max B is going to be a collision between everything that wants a piece of him. The streets, the labels, the blogs, the haters, the fans, even the moral critics, and the one thing only he controls: how he chooses to move. The demons people keep warning him about are real, but so is the chance to flip his story from cautionary tale into proof that you can walk out after 16 years, look all your targets in the eye, the system, the clout chasers, the silent enemies, and refuse to let any of them write the ending for you.